everyone gets AT&T's best deal on the new iPhone 14 Pro with the incredible camera. So, people currently listening to comedy podcasts, and people listening to political podcasts, and people listening to true crime podcasts who actually can't stop listening to true crime podcasts and it's ruling their lives. The point is, everyone, new and existing customers. Ask how to get up to $800 off the new iPhone 14 Pro with eligible trade-in. Visit att.com or our stores for details. Terms and restrictions may apply.
So in the fast-growing world of cryptocurrencies, there are all sorts of coins and all sorts of functions, from your Bitcoin to your Ethereum, and there's a very big group of cryptocurrencies out there known as stable coins. Essentially, it means they don't really fluctuate, right? They hold a stable value and they are used as a medium of transaction. So with the advent of stable coins today, it's kind of like the dream of Bitcoin, right? Where price is stable, a lot of people wants to own it, and it is decentralized. So wow, that is like pipe dream come to life, right? But more importantly is a lot of new applications can be built on this idea of stable coins, and that is what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to another Chills with TFC session. In this series, we hope to bring on interesting, relevant people to help us learn better from various perspectives. Life is not always about learning from people that you already agree with. Perspectives shape a rounder thinker. So in our pursuit of the life we love or managing our finances well, our guest for today is the techie behind Singapore's first and only stable coin backed by MAS. He and his team participated in the famous Y Combinator to nurture their startup and went on to process millions of dollars SGD daily before their bank account was shut down. They're now the only ones in the game and have some very interesting thoughts about stable coins and the future of cryptocurrency. So let's welcome Mr. Victor Liew from Xfers. So I want to kind of hear because I'm a fundamentalist. I'm not a tactician, right? So I know people that trade the market and, they draw the curve, they draw the lines, they do their thing, they do their magic. Okay, so that's their thing. But as a fundamentalist, I want to know what is the base case. Why does this thing have value for me to, participate in. Of course, I also get it that the crypto space is huge, right? So we just narrow down to Bitcoin first. Later, we can talk about the other things. All right. So then, why do you think Bitcoin is too big to fail?
Right. Okay. So if you look at the current asset class right now, what are asset class that cannot really be manipulated by a government, right, or being controlled by the government? Right. If you look at Go exists in the physical world, right? So there's a possibility of like government seizure, government control. Or let's say, we look at Myanmar right now, it's being controlled by the military, right? So certain cases like Go as a class, the government can still control it. But if you look at Bitcoin, for example, right, it's decentralized, so it's not something that government regulation can control. And by control also means that you cannot inflate it, government cannot print on its whim. Go as well cannot be printed on whim, but it still can be controlled. So other asset class, maybe property or real estate or land. Those also are areas where the government cannot just simply print more of that, right? But however, it still can be controlled by government, right? It still can be seized from you if necessary. That's not true for Bitcoin, right? If you have a Bitcoin in an anonymous wallet, it's very hard for our government to kind of take that away from you.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you have internet connection. And right now, we even have like some areas in the rural village in the world being broadcasted internet through satellites, right? So as long as you have internet, you get access to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and you can exchange value. And for that to happen, I think Bitcoin has come a long way for like maybe $1 per Bitcoin all the way to like right now $50K per Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure. Nobody would have imagined this, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I say Bitcoin is too big to fail, I mean like can someone take down that network? Equivalently, how much trust the human race have on Bitcoin itself. So let's look at the first one. Can someone take over the network, right? At the start, when Bitcoin was launched, there were only like maybe 3 miners, right, to secure a network. So if I own 2 computers out of the 3 computer nodes in the Bitcoin network, naturally I can take over a network, right? I can broadcast any kind of transaction I want, and then I accept myself. So over time, this has changed. More and more nodes get added. Right now, if you want to take over the entire Bitcoin network, you need to have 51% voting rights. And to do that, you probably need to have 51% out of the 1 trillion market cap. Income of capital to buy mining rigs, equipment. You need to find a place where you have enough power to go and like mine enough Bitcoin to kind of take over the network. Yeah. So when I say too big to fail, that is one, which is specifically towards can I take over the network? Right. So once the network is secure, next is basically the human race trust in this asset class. Right. If you look at gold, it's only used in 3% of the world's manufacturing process, for example, and somehow, I mean, the humans just trust it because of its historical nature. In the past, people use it to trade. It's like fungible, it's divisible, and basically the gold itself will not corrode. It lasts very, very long. So that's why I think it's all these properties that kind of attract the human race to kind of trust it, and we confer value to gold, right? And that's why we trust each other. Hey, yeah, I can transact this with you securely. You give me some gold, I give you something in value. So right now, when I say Bitcoin is too big to fail from the value perspective, it has reached $1 trillion in market cap. That would signify a certain amount of human trust, right? We trust that asset class. That's why we have conferred to it certain value. And right now the value is at $1 trillion, right? So it has reached a point where I think it's been growing. More and more people are trusting it. So I think it only reached a kind of a network effect where it grew exponentially. And as more and more people trust it and put their money in, automatically it becomes an asset class itself. Simply by nature of one, it cannot be taken over the network. Number two, just increasing trust that we have. Yeah.
Okay. So you are subscribed to the asset class argument, essentially, right? To push, Bitcoin to become a digital asset, right? You believe in that. What about the whole currency discussion? Generally there's two groups of discussion, right? One group is the whole digital gold asset class kind of thing, right? So it becomes an asset class. It will eventually get regulated, eventually get taxed somehow, but it is here to stay. So that's one group of discussion. The other guys, which are a little bit even crazier, talks about replacing the current financial system. So I'm curious, what do you think about the other discussion about Bitcoin potentially replacing the current monetary system? What are your thoughts?
So to be exact, you are mentioning about Bitcoin replacing currency itself, right? So to that, I have several thoughts. I think one, Bitcoin is too volatile for it to be a currency, right? So if I send you one Bitcoin today for payments, I do not know whether by the time it reaches you, the value will drop 10% or 20%, right?
Yes.
So
yes. I'm quite amazed of some people that are willing to take Bitcoin for their projects and for their business.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wow, bro, Kaolat, you're strong.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't think Bitcoin would be a very useful means of payments right now, simply because of the high volatility. And, I mean, the price fluctuates too much. Right? But, however, maybe let's take a look at maybe 50 years later, when the market cap, reaches way, way above like maybe 100 times the current one. So much so that, each fluctuation, 1% fluctuation will cost too much money to move. Right now, it's only $1 trillion. So in terms of like fluctuating at a rate of 5%, it doesn't take a lot of money to move Bitcoin right now, right? But simply because the market cap is so small. It's only $1 trillion, right? So I would expect maybe in 50 years later when the market cap is maybe 100 times that, right? The amount of money required to move the price of Bitcoin as an asset drops so drastically that it becomes a possible form of payments.
Fair.
Yeah. So that alone, we do not know whether that will happen. Right. So I would say, but right now, definitely not. It will not replace currency. Yeah. And the next is, of course, the transaction fee itself right now. I think Bitcoin, to be used as payments, I think payments requires an extremely low transaction fee at a very, very, very fast speed, right, for you to transact. So like imagine I send you a PayLah payment, right, and immediately it goes through, it's free and it's instant, right? It will take a while. I think probably it take a lot of protocol changes before Bitcoin actually achieve that. Which I mean, 50 years later, you never know whether that's possible. And if that occurs, then yeah, great. Perhaps Bitcoin could be the currency. Yeah.
So what are some of the protocol changes that you think need to change for it to have that kind of functionality?
So previously, one of the protocol changes was like the SegWit system, where they kind of allow more Bitcoin transactions to be parked per block to be mined, right? So
just try to help me understand, okay? Speak in layman term, okay?
Okay, yeah. So to put it in layman terms,
yes, layman.
Protocol changes would need to include basically allowing the miners to process more transactions, right, per block than what is currently possible right now. So basically, your volume of transaction processed per second will increase, thereby costing less each time to send, right? And possibly also increasing the speed to mine each block. So then the transaction could be processed. think right now the Bitcoin processing speed, I sent some Bitcoins today to test it out it's around 10 minutes, which is a bit slow in my opinion, right? When compared to PayLive, when I send you
Today is instantaneous, right? Yes.
So I'm not too sure whether someone would want to wait 10 minutes versus instantaneous, right? So
And you're not sure what's the price after 10 minutes.
Yes, exactly. Right, so you send it. 10 minutes is actually a huge.
Yeah,
it's a long time frame.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, so that's a problem, lah. And I think protocol changes that would make it instantaneous, reduce fees, would make Bitcoin a bit more attractive to be used as payments. Yeah.
Okay. So for everyone that don't know these kind of things, right? We have not much clue in this space. How do protocol changes happen?
So a protocol changes happen when.
Is there like a voting system?
Yes. So for a protocol change to happen, you need the majority of the miners to kind of agree to that change. So for example, so previously I mentioned the securing network, you need a 51% vote before a protocol change can happen.
Yes.
So when someone introduces a new patch to the Bitcoin algorithm, for example, or the Bitcoin software, you need to garner the consensus of all the miners, at least 51% vote, that say, hey, okay, we agree to vote and put this software in. And then 51% of miners agree, implement this patch. The rest have to follow. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is how a protocol change usually get proposed and get implemented. It's a very lengthy process to get everyone involved.
Okay, yeah. I'm starting to see it, okay, the beauty of it. But you guys are not so specifically for you guys, right? You guys are super big on the whole stablecoin thing, right? I mean, that's where probably your biggest business is at this moment in time. Right? You guys are the first issuers, of the SG stablecoin.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So then what is stopping the stablecoin from replacing that function? You're trying to paint a picture that Bitcoin eventually can do the payment processing, right? But actually, you can already use the stablecoin to do it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right? With cheaper, faster, no fluctuation. That's the whole idea. Or limited fluctuation. That's the whole idea behind stablecoin. So then, doesn't that remove the need for Bitcoin to be that functional? Right? And then the stablecoin can just kind of eat the market up, right?
Yes. So what you say is true. Because it will take a long time before Bitcoin can reach the state where it could be used as payments. And the thing is that we never know whether it could actually reach that point. So in between from now to that point where Bitcoin is able to be a form of payment, other means, right, of achieving payments has been born and created. For example, stablecoin is one prime example, right? So stablecoin was created as a mean, for long time ago, where traders, they want to basically arbitrage between exchanges, right? Or they want to do market making, right? So back then, basically they would sell an asset class on my exchange and then basically buy an asset class on exchange to market make or to arbitrage, whatever. They would have to rely on the traditional fiat banking system, right? Which would take probably 2 to 3 days to settle, right? So every time I buy, I cash out to a bank, then the bank I deposit to another one.
But then the arbitrage no more already.
Yeah, by the time it's no more. Then it's probably take a lot of time. So usually what they do is that they just keep a huge amount of float on both sides, which is capital inefficient.
For everyone that don't know what is arbitrage, essentially is when two markets have a different price but they're selling the same thing. So you're trying to make advantage of buying from the cheaper side and sell at the more expensive side. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So they realized that, hey, we cannot rely on the traditional banking system. Swift transfer, wire transfer, it's going to take a long time. So along with that, stablecoin was born. The very first one was USD Tether, right? So they realized that if you can actually put a token equivalent of the US dollars, right, which is what we know now as stablecoin, and put an exchange, what traders can do is actually cash out and sell a Bitcoin or buy a Bitcoin using the token itself, which is USD Tether. And after you buy and sell, the movement of USD Tether over to another exchange is actually quite fast. The first incarnation was on the ERC20 Ethereum blockchain, but right now there's many of it already. Tether was also born on the Omni chain, etc. Yeah, so basically it allows close to instantaneous movement of funds within 5 minutes, depending on how much gas fee you pay to other exchange.
So help me understand, what do you mean by born on a blockchain? Yes.
Okay. So how a stablecoin is created is that usually you have a bank account. The bank account usually be hold in trust, right? And then for every $1 of the US dollars on the blockchain itself, I must have a corresponding $1 in the trust bank account. So if I want to have, if I want to mint 10 million USD Tether stablecoin, I need to have $10 million in my trust bank account. And the trust bank account needs to be ring-fenced, it cannot be touched, to kind of guarantee the sanctity of okay, I guarantee that there's 10 million Tether on the blockchain itself. If not, this would just be printing money, right?
Yes.
Like just creating tokens out of nowhere.
Yes.
And that would lead to people not trusting the tokens altogether. Yeah, so that's how a stablecoin is being born and created.
Yeah, and recently in the whole Tether thing, right? Not that recently. There's been this whole shammy discussion around Tether, right? Fundamentally, if you think about it, it challenges the belief of decentralization, because you are trusting a central party, which is the guys behind the Tether, to manage a sub ecosystem within the bigger ecosystem of cryptocurrency. Right, so you're creating a central power within this ecosystem, and they recently got sued.
Right.
I think was New York, the Attorney General, they sued them, right? Fundamentally for this problem, what are your thoughts on this? Will decentralization actually work as this thing become bigger and market monopolies start to happen, and then people centralize is an eventuality in every market. It tends to have. Power tends to centralize. So how do you see this based on the case of Tether being sued?
Okay. In the case of Tether, right? Just interestingly enough, yesterday I read the news on CoinDesk. The case was settled. They pay a fine, and basically the New York Attorney General certified that there's nothing wrong with USD Tether. That possibly gave a huge boost to the community that the USD Tether company is not trying to do anything funny. Previously, there was this whole fear mongering around the company Bitfinex and Tether are intrinsically linked, and colluding to cover up a massive $1 billion loss, etc. Right? So there was a huge hoo-ha, and then also there's also basically fear mongering going on that right now there's 34 billion USD Tether on the blockchain. And many people claim that, maybe they do not have $34 billion in the bank account.
Yeah, because that's the base idea of a stable coin, right? They must have a one-to-one match.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So the allegation has been dismissed yesterday. The news has been published that the NYAG has not found anything amiss.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I'm actually quite happy to hear that, because I have a couple of holdings on USD Tether. That means it gives me back trust that there's a one-to-one peg to that, right? So to your point on centralization of such things happen, I think it's a nice compromise between the incumbent fiat world, right, and the blockchain world. Right now, there needs to be a transition phase towards that. So that kind of represents the bridge, right, helping people from the fiat world to go towards the decentralized blockchain world. Right? So the token was born as a result of that, right? Because you cannot interact with smart contracts or decentralized finance happening on a blockchain, on smart contract, without a tokenized version of your fiat representative. Right? So before we can transit to a fully pure decentralized system, a bridge like this must happen first. Of course, there are other solutions, stablecoin solutions. They are called algorithmic stablecoin. So algorithmic stablecoin is a stablecoin backed by a cryptocurrency asset class, or for example, a Bitcoin. So one prominent example of this is the DAI stablecoin. So the DAI stablecoin, to mint a DAI stablecoin, you need to have an equivalent amount of asset backed by Ethereum. And then you can print the DAI stablecoin. So you see, right, the analogy is for the USD Tether, you need to have $1 in the bank account before you can print one USD Tether. So for the DAI, you need to have, let's say you want to print $1 of DAI, you need to have maybe $1.30 of Ethereum.
Yes.
In fact, it's a bit more. It's likely more because the price of Ethereum fluctuates a lot. So they kind of give you a buffer a bit. Yeah. So this would basically be the decentralized version of stablecoin. Yeah. If people want the decentralized version.
Yes. And then who governs this thing then? Like you were saying about one USD to one Tether, and then 1.3 Ethereum to one DAI. Right, that's kind of where it is, right? And the idea is because Ethereum is more volatile, that's why you have a premium, on that pack, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. But who governs this thing? How do we make sure that this exists and this works?
So for USD Tether, which is like backed by a trust company, usually such an arrangement would require a company that is like not controlled by any entity, an independent company and consortium organization, for example. And then they will probably engage a trust company, or if that's not possible, a bank to do a banking agreement with. And then they would need to hire auditors and like lawyers to kind of regularly certify that that's indeed a pack, right? Before everyone in the world can trust them.
Yeah, for sure.
And USD Tether has committed to basically releasing statements every quarter to kind of prove that there's a one-to-one pack. That's one arrangement. Similar arrangement would be like the USDC, which is a competitor to the USD Tether. So what they do is that they have a consortium as well, independent consortium, non-profit. They will basically certify, have auditors coming and check their books to make sure that every one USDC, there's going to be a $1 back in the bank account, certified by a third-party accredited auditor. For us, what we do for Singapore stablecoin is that we are regulated by MAS actually. So I think we are the only stablecoin where it's directly regulated by government. So USDC and USDT is not regulated and controlled by the government. So
they're
for
using
us,
a custodian arrangement to
correct.
do that.
So, but
okay.
there's nothing, the White House basically never said, oh, it's something that you regulate you, etc. Right?
Yes.
For us, it's a bit different. We are regulated by government, and we also have a banking service agreement with a bank to hold that in trust. And we also have third-party auditors. So this three comes together to kind of like make sure that nothing goes wrong when we kind of print stablecoins. If not, just be printing money, right? Which I think MAS will not be happy if you just
Of course, you're eating
creating money out of nowhere.
you're eating their business. Right?
Correct. Yeah. So these are the two main different ways to regulate this and kind of like make sure that no one is, happy come in and just release their own stablecoin.
Yes.
Yeah. And for the algorithmic stablecoin, usually this is controlled by a decentralized autonomous organization. To put it in layman's terms, it's kind of like people who participate in this community will kind of vote on like the changes on this protocol itself. So things involve like recently there was a vote to decide, hey, should we increase the fees for minting DAI, for example, right? What is the interest rate? So these are things that the community will decide and vote and decide the future of the algorithmic stablecoin. Yeah, so you can see the difference between the centralized one and then the decentralized one. The decentralized one usually is powered by the algorithm, the smart contracts, and the community voting on it, right, to make sure that nothing's happened. Whereas in the traditional fiat, trust-based company, is usually regulated by auditors, your lawyers, or in our case, even the government.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the main difference.
Okay. I can see the beauty in this, right? Like, because, in our current world, there's a lot of organizations built behind this whole trust idea, where they're here as a clearinghouse, they're here as an interim to make sure that you are following the law. You are following what society deems as okay. This is the standard, right? So you have your lawyers, you have your auditors, you have your medical professionals. All these are clearinghouses in their respective field. Right? So eventually, if blockchain becomes very, very, very prevalent, where everybody can use it, then it paints a very different picture in terms of how the future of trust can be built in our society. Essentially, I think there is a lot of beauty there. But I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts just on the idea of stable coins as the base, right? Where can this crypto future develop?
Okay, what I'm trying to understand from your question is, what kind of financial possibilities or like interesting financial applications that they can be arise?
Yes.
When we have programmable money such as stablecoin.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think if you look at the decentralized finance space, i.e., financial applications coded on smart contracts, right, running on the blockchain, which is basically another lingo for basically software running on a blockchain system.
Yes.
Right? Previously, you have software running on a traditional servers hosted by Amazon Web Services.
Yes.
Right, but now you have software running on the blockchain itself, right, which is decentralized.
Which is essentially a web of computers.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. So I would see that the future 10 years, you'll see a migration of space from what a centralized provider and centralized financial software system could provide and migrating over to the decentralized space. right? So example, you have your exchanges, right? Let's say your Bitcoin exchanges, your stock exchanges. Right now, we have an equivalent exchange on the decentralized world. Example of this would be your Uniswaps, your 1inch. All these are like the equivalent of the exchanges.
So Binance is not the same.
Yeah, Binance is not the same. So Binance is a centralized system. So Binance will host their servers on Amazon Web Services, on traditional servers. They have full control over who can buy and sell. Right? If they do not like you, they can quite possibly delete your
They
account.
can veto
and,
you, right? Essentially,
correct, and you cannot trade there. Right? But that's not the same on a decentralized exchange such as Uniswap. Right? The moment you connect your wallet, that's it. Decentralized finance does not discriminate who you are. Right, your race, who you are, like whether you are legally allowed to do this. As long as you have internet connection, you have a wallet, you connect to it, you can trade, and that's the beauty of it. So, I would see a lot of this kind of centralized finance moving over. Another example would be like the insurance space. So you have previously you have a centralized policy writer to kind of write, okay, accident insurance, right? I'll determine the premium, I'll determine like who gets the payout, etc. Already we are seeing some form of it taking place in a decentralized finance world. An example of this would be like Nexus Mutual. There'll be a community of people who kind of like decides on what's the premium, can a certain payout be done. Right, so a lot more of this, but basically move on, like whatever you can think of, robo-advisors, maybe your hedge fund manager. So like right now we have like mutual funds being released, right? Everyone can buy mutual funds. So already we see some of that happening also in the decentralized phase world, right? You can easily start the fund on the DeFi world and then just run it, right? Anyone who has internet connection can just connect to it. Yeah, so I would imagine we're moving towards that space, and stablecoin actually kind of powers that movement, right? Because a lot of it, what happened, it needs to be a transition phase for people to start moving the money in the fiat world and the centralized world over to the decentralized finance world. So previously, I probably invest some amount of money into like traditional robo-advisory, like maybe in Singapore we call it stash away, right, for example. And then now I'm actually parking some of my money over on the DeFi smart yield products, right? There's many of that lah. Like goes by in very interesting names, like Harvest Finance, Unagi Vault.
Harvest Moon.
Yes, exactly. So the DeFi phase is a bit interesting in the phase that there's a lot of quirky new funds and names going on. It allows you to basically, all of them accept stable coins, right? Then you can put there, then they'll help you manage your money for you.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is where I see the future going towards.
Cool. I like what you are painting. I think there's a lot of potential here for sure, because I see a lot of problems with the traditional way of running things, right? But I'm still a little concerned about decentralization as a whole, right? Because fairly utopian in some ways, right? It's a lot of trust within the community, and it's a lot of essentially it's like a bigger world kind of thing, right? Where you trust the community and then you kind of regulate yourself. There's no like big brother in this space, for like a better way to put it, right? So can you help me understand like why is decentralization so sexy, to you guys? Although you guys are doing stable coins, it's you're kind of like stuck in between, leveraging on the traditional financial world and try to bridge to the digital world, right? So being in between, how do you see decentralized?
It's interesting because the reason why we choose to be in between, because we think that it's going to take a long time before everyone transits over to the decentralized world, right? And I mean, if you look at internet and you look at television, it doesn't entirely wipe out the radio world, right? People are still tuning in the radio. As much as what everyone says, like, television, internet, media.
Yes. Radio is still a thing, yes.
Right, radio is still a thing.
Podcast is a bigger thing now. Yes,
exactly.
That's why you're on the podcast. Yes,
exactly.
Awesome.
So we still believe that there needs to be a bridge between the traditional world and on the decentralized world. And I think these two worlds would coexist for a long time, because true, I mean, decentralized is sexy, is great. It enables things that previously is not possible. For example, if a company right now in US or Brazil, right, or Vietnam wants to come to Singapore and to start a business, right, and they want to accept payments for it, previously what they need to do is to come here, incorporate a company, apply for a bank account, and then accept money through the bank account, and then later remit it back to their home country in their own currency. This whole process will take a very long time.
Very expensive also. Pure blood.
I mean, Singapore is really easy to incorporate, but if you try incorporating in Indonesia, it will take you at least 3 months.
I know what you mean.
Right. So this is an example of countries where it's not so easy to incorporate and not so easy to get a bank account. And also, depending on the type of business that you do, they will not like you. And also specifically for financial technology, if you were to want to do a fintech startup in Indonesia, for example, or in Taiwan, it's a very sensitive thing. The banks may not want to work with you.
Yes.
Right. So imagine you incorporate in Taiwan, and then you say, hey, I'm doing this new interesting cryptocurrency business. I want to open a bank account and I receive money, accept money, right? Taiwan dollars for it.
To them, it's too interesting.
Yes.
Too fashion forward. Too interesting.
Correct. So,
cannot work with you guys.
Exactly. The bank will not want to work with you.
Yes.
And what they'll do is usually they open a bank account and then notice transaction. If it hits a certain volume, they will shut you down. They'll write a letter, say, hey, okay, sorry, we cannot do business with you with no other reasons provided. Right? Simply because you're a threat to their existing business model, or maybe because they think that you're too risky, or they do not understand your business, or it's too costly to understand your business. So right now, a lot of this innovation cannot happen because this whole process takes a long time. But this is different if you have like stablecoin coming existent, right? So right now, if a company, back to my example of like a US company or a Vietnam company, they want to come to Singapore to accept payments, they can accept payments through a stablecoin. So in our case, maybe a Singapore stablecoin. They accept them payments, and then to remit it back, they can go to a decentralized exchange such as Uniswap, swap it back to US dollars stablecoin, and remit it back, and then they can get it into their base currency. So the time for them to enter markets has reduced drastically from months to maybe days, right? And this would basically be a worldwide phenomenon in each country that adopt this new form of like financial payments.
Yes.
Yeah. So you enable innovation to take place at a very rapidly extorting rate.
I get it. I get it. I get the whole idea of like all with the stable coin being prevalent, as a stable currency, it allows for a lot of innovation in this space, right? Then why are you still so positive about the Bitcoin future? Why can't the interim be a stable coin, and Bitcoin just kind of fades out as that prototype of the beginning? It started this way. It created, this whole movement and, all so much money in this space, and without it, it's probably very hard to enable a lot of all this innovation over time. But why can't it just fade out and, because it's not innovating already in that sense?
I think if I take a look at the cryptocurrency world and the value creation, right? Let's take a look at the value creation, right? How much benefit it brings to us. So cryptocurrency world, I would see Bitcoin and maybe to a certain extent, Litecoin are like storage of value where it's not prone to inflation. And that means you cannot just print more Bitcoin whenever you want. Right. So there's some value of that. So I basically back to my original proponent of like Bitcoin as an asset class on itself, right? To basically represent a store of value for people, right? And then on the other hand, you look at value creation point of view, it will be basically software, smart contracts running on the blockchain itself that give us the value, right? So actually, these are very two different usage of cryptocurrency as a whole. So that's why, because of it, I do not think it will fade away because it's just two different things, right? It's just apple and oranges. Yeah, and I think both of them can coexist to give us different kind of values. So that's why I do not think Bitcoin will just simply fade away and disappear. Right, it helps. It basically helps us to achieve different things, right? For example, storage of value and it cannot be seized. Most importantly, it cannot be seized. Right. Right now, I can't think of any asset class where, it cannot be seized and it cannot be inflated, and people have trust in that system. And so far, Bitcoin is the only one that I see that that have all these properties. Yeah. Okay. So that's why I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, I hope you learned something useful today and truly appreciate that you took time off to better your life with the Financial Coconut. Knowledge is that much more powerful and interesting when shared, debated, and discussed. Join our community Telegram group, follow us on our socials, sign up for our weekly newsletter. Everything is in the description below. And if you love us, want to help us grow, definitely share the podcast with your friends and on your socials. Also, if you have some interesting thoughts to share or know someone that you want to hear more from, reach out to us through hello@thefinancialcoconut.com. With that, have a great day ahead. Stay tuned next week, and always remember, personal finance can be chill, clear, and sustainable for all.
So for every guest that come on the show, we're gonna ask 3 questions. For every guest, same ones. So I'm gonna ask you. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the first question is, what is a core life principle that you hold close to?
I think one of the life principles I really believe in is basically how can I improve myself on a daily basis. At the same time, I want to help people to improve as well. Right. So what I mean by improving myself every day, it would be like reading something of interest that I may not even know of. For example, I'm a software engineer by trade, but at the same time, I also read up on marketing materials. I'm intrinsically very curious about different things. How business development works, how to generate sales. And recently I'm also trying to figure out the world of social media. I'm trying to basically see how can I build my Twitter following, build my Instagram following.
Yes.
Yeah, because I find it very amazing that someone can actually come in here and after a prolonged period of time, build a huge followers. That's something that I cannot wrap my head around. And because I'm a software engineer, right? I deal with code every day. But when it comes to areas like social media, etc.,
like influence, all those kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really do not know how they do that, and that basically compels me to try to improve myself and how can I get towards that and learn this. Yeah. So at the same time, I also believe in helping people. So as much as possible, it's not just me who will improve, right? I want to form a network of people who are like constantly looking at improving themselves, upgrading themselves. And by doing that, I'm in a network of people who hold each other mutually accountable and hey, have you learned this? Have you read this? Have you seen this new crypto projects, right? So as long as I build myself up and I build everyone around me up, I feel like I can really progress as a human being, right, and to improve myself.
Nice, awesome. Question number 2 is, what is a personal finance advice that you feel needs to be propagated further?
I think a lot of people do not understand the value of debt in wealth creation. Yeah. So
Agree.
Yes, there's a lot of benefit in understanding debt. There's extremely bad debts like unpaid credit card debts. There's also like working debts where you actually take a mortgage, to buy machineries to increase your output, or in the case of like most people understand, taking a mortgage to buy HDB flats, right? That's a working debt. And then lastly, I would say is like I'll call it productive debt, where you intentionally go into debt to create more wealth. Example for this would be like interest carry trading. So you basically borrow cheap interest and then you put it into an higher bearing interest place, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm just borrowing money at a cheaper rate and I'm putting in decentralized finance operation that's paying out more interest. Yeah. So a lot of people do not know how to make use of debt to grow more wealth because there's a limited amount of money you can use to go and buy stocks, buy unit trusts or buy Bitcoin. Eventually you realize that, hey, I don't have a lot of working capital. So for you to really grow your wealth, some risks must be taken. Get into some form of debt that you can control, and then use it as a leverage to build wealth at a much faster rate than most people can.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's not talked about a lot, so it's a problem.
Yes, it's a problem, definitely.
So then the third question. Okay, last question is, which part of your life are you giving additional focus on now?
So when I look at my life, I kind of classify my life well-being into 3 main domains, right? I call it the physical domain, the intellectual domain, and the emotional domain. On the intellectual domain, I pretty much do that in my daily work all the time, right? Basically, writing code, thinking about code reviewing, like how to do management, etc. And I think what I'm lacking on right now, I think during COVID especially, right? I'm basically neglecting my physical domain, i.e. I have not been exercising, I've not been eating well. So as a result, I've gained like 10 kg over the past 1 year. So that's really bad. And that kind of affects my emotional domain, right? Because
I'm feeling you, yes.
Yes. So I think that's something I really want to work on. And I started with basically exercising at least 2 times a week.
Nice.
Yeah, and I hold myself accountable by building a network of people who wants to achieve the same things. And then we have interesting things like, if you do not achieve your exercise this week, you need to pay a fine.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's something I'm actively working on, and I hope to basically be able to run 10 km by the end of this year. Which is a far fetch because previously I was actually doing tons of Ironman. 2 years ago I was doing 6 Ironmans.
Serious?
Yeah, and now I'm like reduced to nothing. I just gained 10 kg out of nowhere.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And wish you all the best. See you at the next Ironman. See
Yes.
until I'm gonna join, right? Thank you. Thanks for coming on. Love it. Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone gets AT&T's best deal on the new iPhone 14 Pro with the incredible camera. So, people currently listening to comedy podcasts, and people listening to political podcasts, and people listening to true crime podcasts who actually can't stop listening to true crime podcasts and it's ruling their lives. The point is, everyone, new and existing customers. Ask how to get up to $800 off the new iPhone 14 Pro with eligible trade-in. Visit att.com or our stores for details. Terms and restrictions may apply.